This is my biggest build ever, because in this video I'm 3D printing thousands of miniatures and sculpting, painting and detailing a giant replica of the Kingdom of Hyrule. This video is sponsored by Bamboo Lab, who asked me to make something awesome with their A1 multicolor 3D printer. I told them the more I can print, the more awesome it'll be. So they sent me all of their 3D printers, and with all of this printing power, I can pick something truly epic to create. Now fortunately, I've got some creative liberty, because Hyrule looks different depending on what game you play. My Hyrule from my childhood looks like this. Yours might look like this, or this. But style and proportions aside, there is a general shape and layout to Hyrule, which is captured in the trailer for the game that's, I think, just coming out now, Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, the first game where you can actually play as Zelda. And when the trailer first came out, plenty of savvy fans pointed out that the layout was almost identical to A Link to the Past. So I'm going to be using those as my anchor in this project. The map layout of A Link to the Past with that really cool cartoony aesthetic style of Echoes of Wisdom. I am going bigger than I've ever gone before. This is 2.4 by 2.4 meters. It's so big I can't even reach the middle when I'm standing to the side, which I will regret later. So to get started, I need a reference. This is the amount of detail I want to be able to follow on my giant Hyrule board. But, well, it's too small, isn't it? So we're just gonna make it bigger. Just line it up and tap! Now that's a reference I can follow. This is bigger than my bed, like, by a significant amount. There is so much on this map. Like, look at all the trees and all the buildings and all the plants and all the statues. And I'm not even thinking about that yet, because I gotta start with the elevation. We've got rivers, we've got lakes, we've got mountains, we've got canyons. That is the thing I've got to put down first. Now the layer of dense blue foam at the bottom is basically gonna be my riverbed. I'm not gonna cut below that. These first two are going to be the layers that my riverbed is cut into. It also conveniently combines all of my foam into quadrants, so I can then work in quarters for the rest of the project. Oh my God, who'd have thought gluing foam together would be a full body workout? Next step is to figure out the topography of all the layers above our absolute base ground level. There are loads of areas where we just have these ridges that appear but don't seem to show wherever else is raised as well. So I have to figure out where that connects to, because at the end of the day, elevated terrain is a big piece of foam, so it needs to end somewhere else. Now fortunately, I figured out a way to trace a lot of this terrain by piercing the map with toothpicks all the way along the ridges of the terrain or the river, so that after lifting the map, I was just left with the toothpicks and I can basically do a connect the dot drawing. There's plenty more terrain to do, and some of it, as you can see, is going to be layered quite high, but a lot of these are just in sections that I can now cut out and use these as templates to quickly trace and cut foam and put it in place and build it up quick. Now, as you'll see, those first few layers of foam I put on top of the blue foam are making much more sense, because I can carve out the shape of the riverbeds in water and pluck those layers out to start having terrain that goes down as well as up. It's time to bring it all back together again and use those shapes that I cut out to trace layers and layers of foam to really elevate our scenery. This was a lot, but it looks so cool! The main thing is all of the edges are done that are going to have the stonework that you can see on the edges of the terrain in the game. Now, my little secret for this project is I've had to think and work ahead. There is so much I have to populate this board with. So for the last month, there's been sculpting and lots of 3D printing to bring this all together. The first thing I needed to work on was the rock faces around all of the edges of this board. Let's flash back to how I made those. Now to make my rock molds, I sculpt in the only way I know how, in virtual reality. Using Adobe Medium, I bring in some pre-measured rectangular prisms, specifically measured to be 2 centimeters tall and almost the full width of a 3D print bed. There's also a variation that's 4 centimeters tall, which I'll do second, but basically using this geometry to create the patterns and textures that I want to cover my terrain edges with. When I'm happy with how both of my rock blocks look, I duplicate them multiple times and create sort of a square bowl for them all to sort of be held in. The idea being that I can export this and 3D print this all as one solid block ready to pour silicon into. This has filled the whole print bed and the detail is insane. I printed this on a high level of detail because there are different options, so it took a bit longer. For filament printing, that's insane detail. Like you can barely see the layer lines. Now that I have my mold maker, let's make a mold. And because I made a mold maker, when that's done, I can just make another silicon mold and pour my plaster into it, and I'll have perfect rocks to... All right, still gotta figure out the formula. Now, I think the reason that last one went wrong was because we used paint in our mix, and I'm wondering if mixing in ink will mean that we won't be introducing more moisture to the plaster mix. So with a bit of experimenting, I've tried to come up with a formula that I can repeat to get this sort of mid-gray color, which is all around the terrain in Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. We have mass-produced all of our rock faces. Now it's time to put them on the board. So with the help of Sikaflex and our pre-hot glued rock faces, teamwork makes the dream work as we line all of the edges with our texture. It looks so good! Look at it, it looks like video game texture. I'm so chuffed. Now that we got the foundational elements of the terrain done, it's time to think about the next step, the props. There's so much more than just terrain. There's trees and houses and fences and castle. There's so much here. So let me take you back to a month ago when I started the journey creating our most prominent prop, the trees. So I did a bit of a peruse online and sure enough, I found a Zelda tree. But it wasn't as detailed or as aesthetically pleasing as what I see in Echoes of Wisdom, so we're gonna revamp it a bit. Taking it into virtual reality, I created some leafy stamps that I then applied throughout in patterns, painting around the tops of the trees and extending the branches underneath. Now here's a happy accident I had no idea it could happen. Bamboo Studio, the 3D printing software for Bamboo Labs printers, actually imports the colors as you have it divided. And because it's a multicolored printer, having those areas that I'd already pre-painted in VR ready just to assign to different filaments was amazing. It has pretty good auto supports, but you can also paint specifically the areas that you want to support, which I did just around the outer rim of the trees and then threw it on the 3D printer. Look at that, with the supports removed, it's perfect. Like it's this adorable little cartoon tree. That's insane. You can barely see the layer lines and it's multicolor. I've never done multicolor before. I can do multicolor. It's just the whole, it's done. No assembly required. I've got a tree. I just need hundreds more. This is the A1. All of our trees, and they are both ready to chuck on another print. Look at that, immediately. With each print taking a couple of days because it's multicolored and quite a large bed, I could produce over 100 trees every few days, which is fortunate because there are over 700 trees that I'm trying to replicate. So that's at least 2.5 weeks of non-stop printing trees and trees and trees. So I set Murray and Amy to work on removing all the supports from the trees ready to populate our board.
Hey team, how we going?
Can I cry yet?
I think now's a pretty good time to talk about the sponsor of this video, Bamboo Lab. I've been getting a lot of 3D printing TikToks in my For You page, and I couldn't help but notice All of the 3D print farms out there rely on Bambu Lab printers as the most reliable and economic solution for long-term 3D printing or studio projects or personal hobbying. The Bambu Lab A1 is an entry-level price, but it delivers print quality and volume comparable to high-end machines, and it's the only mature multicolor printing solution in this price range, offering exceptional value for money. I have 3D printed with many 3D printers in my day, and I have never had the streamlined, joyful, effortless experience like I have with these Bambu printers. They're absolutely incredible and so much fun. As a content creator, I love the fact that every single one of their printers comes with a camera and the ability to record time lapses, and you can of course check on your print no matter where you are in the world. And speaking of checking on your print, Bambu Handy, their app, which connects to your account and all of those 3D printers, not only is connected to their store where you can browse and print effortlessly from a huge community of contributors, but you can monitor all of your machines in the one place. I've had so much fun with this video, so I'm hoping you're going to enjoy the results as much as I am producing them, but a huge thank you to Bambu Lab for sponsoring this video. Go check out the A1, I'll put the link in the description. These things are so cool! It's time to tackle these massive mountains at the back. Once everything is stacked and glued, it's then a matter of going around with my hot knife and creating that mountainy texture. So this is where Murray and I split but work in the same areas. I'm going through with a grey sculptor mold to fill in gaps and seal the bottom areas of places that I'm hoping to do resin pours on later. Meanwhile, Murray will be going through and painting all of the surfaces to make sure we can get everything a nice uniform colour and seal it ready for painting. This was a mammoth effort. It was so much to paint, and getting in all the nooks and crannies was really hard. Even Benny put down the camera and pitched in, but seeing it all come together is so satisfying. It's amazing, I love it. We've run out of paint, but we're done. I am so happy with...
We missed one.
Ah, crap, I gotta mix some more paint. If I ever think about going bigger than this, please stop me, because it won't be physically possible. I'll probably try, because I'm an idiot. I came back the next day, and with the work mostly dry, it's time to go in with some colour. Now, the old school map, a lot of the edges and the rock work are brown, but in the newest trailer, it's all grey. So I'm going to go with the newer colour schemes, and starting off with that mid-grey all around the edge work, which are also grey in Echoes of Wisdom. Then it's on to misting down some colour in each of the biome areas. Now these aren't the final colours, these are just going to lay a foundation for what we can paint and flock onto later. With our base colour down, I've got to bring back a little bit more of the detail and the crisp edges all around the rock work, and then we can get ready for flock. But to get ready for flock, we need flock. Flocking hell. And to make this, it's really quite simple. It's just a matter of mixing sawdust, paint, and PVA, and then letting it out to dry. Now, while mass production of that is happening, we can fast forward to the present where Amy and I will be going over all of that board that I've pre-prepped with my aerosol and dry brushing all of those rocky edges to make those highlights and crisp details start coming to life. I have to remind myself that these rock faces were a 3D print. Like, it's so insane that I was able to make this amount of replicable, high detail, mass-produced rock faces from a single 3D print that I sculpted in virtual reality. So we've got tons of flock, and you can also color sand. I didn't know this, I just gave it a crack and it works a treat. Sieving down playground sand by mixing concrete oxides or color compounds or raw pigments, in the case of this cadmium yellow, you can mix them together and get exactly the color sands you want. I am really happy with how this has turned out. I've got all the things I need now to put on the board, which is painted. To apply it though, we just need a very watery Mod Podgy mix with paint that we spread down and sprinkle this on top, and then we have our board. this is only halfway. We have houses and fences and a castle to fill the rest of the board with. So let's get started. Joke's on you, we already have. We've been working on this for months. Hey Dave, I'm making a massive Zelda project. I really like to use your 3D modeling skills. Can you give me a hand?
I love using my 3D modeling skills. I'm so happy to give you a hand. Let's do it.
So Jazza asked me to help him sculpt some props for his Link to the Past map. First up were the houses. These are a super fun design and I had a great time creating all of the nooks and notches in the wooden ceilings. One of the keys to printing support-free is you've got to make sure that you have these angles underneath all of the overhangs. This will ensure the 3D printer has something to lay down the filament on so it can build up to the roof, for example, and it won't require any supports to hold it up. I sure hope those 700 trees don't have supports on them. The bushes are a classic in Zelda games and were actually super simple to sculpt. Key here was making sure the leaves came all the way down to the base of the print bed so they could also go support free. Moving on to another important part of the map, we have fences everywhere, and there are two types of fences in the Link to the Past map. We have a straight post and rail type, and a more primitive construction of just vertical posts all shoved in the ground. The key with the haphazard one was to allow it to self-stand, and to do this I added some cute little rocks which I could print in grey, and then to make these look more like wood, I could print the top of them in a lighter brown. And I think altogether it made some really quaint little fences. I also made a whole selection of small bits and pieces such as stairs and rocks and cacti for the desert. But I think my favorite piece of all of them was these stone pillars, where I actually sculpted out the designs as seen on the trailer for Echoes of Wisdom, and I think I did a really good job replicating these from the games. And in Bamboo Lab, I got to paint on some little moss in areas, and the green printed fantastically, and it added this gorgeous variation to all of the surfaces. Finally, Jazza wanted some Gerudo houses to go in the desert, so I added a bunch of cute little bricks and made a fantastic little canopy that would print in red for the sides of the buildings. So there you go, Jazza. I hope you like my adorable Zelda props for your insanely cool creation. I can't wait to see how it turns out.
We are finally at the point in the project where over a month of sculpting and 3D printing and a whole week of making just the foundation of this board co-align, and we have everything in the present bringing it all together. So we got separated boards and thousands of 3D prints. We thought the board looked cool before. Something tells me this next step is going to really bring it up. Now that we finally have all of these incredible models, all of these finished trees, one by one we can glue them all in place and replicate that far-spanning top-down map of Hyrule. Now, the trees alone bring this whole thing to life, but it's when we start to move into bringing some more of those flourishes of detail, from the houses to the cacti to the pillars, that really bring the Zelda flavor into our world. Now, Bamboo Labs sell all different kinds of filaments. I've opted to stick to the matte filaments, which have this really nice cartoony aesthetic, which is really helping me replicate that Zelda feel. This is so satisfying. With every single tree and house and fence that goes in place, it becomes more and more the kingdom I grew up with. I am absolutely in love with this project. Just look at it. Now, it's at this point you might be noticing something fairly crucial missing from our board, and that is a little castle right in the middle. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten, but jumping back into VR and bringing in a model from Sketchfab that someone made of Hyrule Castle, stripping back all of the other props and materials so that I was left with just the castle that I could then add detail and color to bring Hyrule Castle to life. Look, there might be ways this would be easier in modeling software like Dave used in Blender, but I don't know how to use that software. I've only ever done digital sculpting in VR, and it's just the way I understand digital sculpting. But it's enough to at least empower me to fully detail brick by brick the whole of Hyrule Castle. And having gone through the process enough now, I know that I can bring it straight into Bamboo Studio, chuck on supports, and fill the entire bed size to its maximum to make my castle as tall and glorious as I can. Oh my God, here it is in one perfect print. I'm gonna remove these supports and reveal the castle underneath. Look at that, they're already coming off. Whoa! It's literally just revealing this castle underneath. all gone. Look at that. That looks so good. That came out as one print. That is mind-blowing. Complete with 4 colors, all the textures I sculpted in virtual reality, including the rooftop tiles and the differently colored tiles. This is just pure magic. I'm done. It's done. My mind is blown that every single prop, every building and the castle itself was printed with no construction necessary. Everything was printed multicolor, all as one piece, ready to go on the board. This is the magic of these amazing bamboo printers. A magic that really stands out when I put my beautiful castle in place. It's not even in the middle. Look at this! This is insane. This is the hugest, coolest thing I've ever done. And how cool does the castle look in the middle with the white just standing out amongst this gorgeous landscape? Now, as insane as this has all been to put together, there's still quite a bit to do. I have resin rivers, I've got to populate the middle of the board, and we have tiny details to put everywhere. This is going to be so good when it's done. But I'm just going to break for 1 second because I want to get personal for a moment. You see, over the last year, the content has taken a little bit of a background priority for me personally, just as I've gone through and worked through a bit of a depressive period and also gone through a period of restaffing and just running things. And obviously the economy isn't amazing right now, so it's been pretty tough for the last year. But as you can tell with the tone of this project and recent videos, things are really moving in a good direction. I feel amazing and I'm so excited about the content that we're producing. I've got a brand new editor and cameraman. He's an absolute legend. And we have so much awesome content in the pipeline ready to come out for you guys, and we're just getting started. So this is just a chance for me to say thank you for watching. YouTube is harder and harder to reach people on nowadays, with shorts taking up a lot of it, and let's face it, people only browse their home feed anymore. Subscriptions doesn't count for a whole lot. So unless I'm recommended to you, which in this case I probably was, it's pretty hard to get seen by people anymore. But you watched this video all the way up to this point, and that really means a lot to me, and I'm really grateful. So thank you so much. And please keep an eye out for future videos, because I'm really excited about what we're producing and feeling really passionate about what we can do. Now, while I'd love to lock the castle and everything in place, I'm actually going to do the resin rivers first, starting off by dry brushing in a bit of a dark blue to create a sense of depth. And then I'm going to do my resin rivers and lakes in 2 layers. The first being a UV resin with a few drops of dark blue ink mixed in and of course cured with UV. This is for 2 reasons. One, to give a greater sense of depth with a deeper blue underneath, but also to seal it off. I don't know where there are gaps, and UV resin cures with the UV light, meaning hopefully this will also act as a sealant for any gaps that there may be. Then it's a matter of putting in the next pour of resin, artist's resin, with less of the ink mixed in, a bit clearer, but also a little bit deeper and all around the board. Now, with my final layer of resin poured, as it started to cure, I went through with a toothpick and some light blue paint and did some lining right along where the edges met the water. This to add a little bit of that cartoony feel and create some interesting surface detail. Now, coming back the next day, when it was all fully cured, it's time to go in with a layer of Mod Podge and then blowing it through a straw to create some surface ripples. That texture on my water looks amazing. Now it's time to go throughout the rest of this massive piece and add all of the finishing touches. We're going to place down flowers and tufts to add more detail and texture. We're going to edge line with a light blue all the way around all of the water areas just to create that cartoony feel and a division between the areas. And I know you've been waiting for me to do it. Let's fill in the center of this map. We can paint the Triforce on the castle and place everything in the center, surrounding the town with houses, trees, and shrubs, bringing Hyrule to life. You'll notice that there are some places that don't exactly match the map. You know what? Every single Zelda game is different from one to the other. Just consider the incongruencies in my map just because it's my Hyrule. I've got my own version, so shut your trap in the comments. And it's almost ready to show off, except there's one last thing. I found this really cool 3D model of Zelda herself from Echoes of Wisdom that I thought at a larger scale would be a really cool set piece for a few foreground shots and our reveals, and of course to have on my desk after this project. So I set up 2 print beds, one to print her clothes and body and the other to print her skin and face details. Now it's just a matter of printing our princess and a few giant trees that we can remove supports from, piece together, and give our reveals a few interesting shots that will really give us a sense of scale. And now the moment you have all been waiting for. I am so excited to share with you the Kingdom of Hyrule. Oh my God. This is the biggest project I've ever done. 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters and insanely detailed everywhere, from every little tree and shrub to the castle. And of course it wouldn't be possible by any stretch without Bamboo Lab, who sent me the 3D printers and sponsored this video. With the fact that this is achieved without a huge amount of prints that I have to piece together or without having to paint it afterwards is insane and so cool. It has already changed the way we're creating stuff in the studio. I've already printed this one for an upcoming project. So make sure to subscribe to check out the crazy projects I have coming up. And I just hope you have had as much incredible fun as I have had in this insane project. More fun to come. Make sure to subscribe, hit like, and I'll see you in the next video.